Hello, hello, Sarah of SEK Handmade here, and today I want to share with you how to work the Tunisian waffle stitch. This definitely looks a little different than a crocheted waffle stitch, but it has amazing texture that I know you're going to love, so let's go. You guys, I am absolutely in love with the texture of the Tunisian waffle stitch. It is just so beautiful. I really, really love it. It is a simple stitch that's easy to do. I'm going to show you all the tips and tricks to get it just right. To join in this tutorial, you simply need any yarn weight that you're comfortable with and a matching Tunisian hook or a regular crochet hook that has a nice long neck, so a non-ergonomic one. And this is a repeat of 2 rows and 2 stitches, so make sure you start off with an even number of stitches and do your setup row. If you don't know how to do that, there's a link in the description of for a tutorial on how to do that, and then we're going to get ready to go. I'm going to do my return pass to get me back to the beginning, and we'll dive into the waffle stitch. Tunisian waffle stitch is worked by alternating between a Tunisian simple stitch and a Tunisian slanted stitch. I have tutorials for both of those, and I will link them in the description below if you want a more in-depth look on how to create those stitches. So for your first row, you're going to start with a Tunisian simple stitch, insert your hook from right to left, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then you're going to work your next stitch as a Tunisian slanted stitch. That stitch is worked by inserting your hook from left to right instead of right to left. So you might think of it as kind of backwards. This, I will confess, is a little finicky. So if you're feeling like it's a challenge to do, especially at first, you're not alone and you're not wrong. The trick is to make sure you only get that one loop onto your hook, but that you do get all of the plies from your yarn. Once you've done that, you're going to yarn over, pull a loop through, and now you've got one Tunisian simple stitch and one Tunisian slanted stitch. Notice that when I worked my Tunisian slanted stitch, it really yanked on my next stitch that I need to work into. This is totally normal. If you think about it, that whole row is just one loop of yarn. It's all the loops you're pulling up onto your hook. And so when you yank on one to make it bigger, it's going to shorten the next one, and that's totally fine. The great news about waffle stitch is that since you're alternating, your next stitch you're going to put in here is a simple stitch, and so it's real easy to just insert your hook and do your Tunisian simple stitch. And the simple stitch tends not to pull quite as much on the next stitch. So then you're going to work your slanted stitch. I have found that I actually like to work my slanted stitch by grabbing the loop from left to right with this part of my hook instead of the very tip. So I just grab the loop with my hook and then turn the tip so that it's facing up. I did not grab all my plies there though. You can also insert your hook like a Tunisian simple stitch and give this a little tug to give yourself a little more space to insert your hook. So I'm just going to grab it from left to right with my hook, twist the tip of my needle up, and complete my stitch. Next one is a Tunisian simple stitch, and we're just going to alternate back and forth. Tunisian simple stitch, Tunisian slanted stitch. Again, as your stitches pull, you may find that this last one is especially hard to see, so be careful not to skip it. Working in your first row of the waffle stitch, this last stitch should be a Tunisian slanted stitch. So if you get to the end and you're not ready for a Tunisian slanted stitch, check your row. You may have made a mistake somewhere in there. So insert your hook from left to right, yarn over, pull up your loop, and then you need to find where you're going to insert your hook at the very side of your work. And it's just the same as always. You want that V with the 2 loops at the end. Right there. Yarn over, and pull up your loop for the very end. Then you're going to complete your return pass just as usual, and then we can work on the second row of the Tunisian waffle stitch. All right, now that we're back at the beginning, we're just going to flip the order that we do our stitches in. So in the previous row, we did a Tunisian simple stitch in our first stitch. So this time we're going to do a Tunisian slanted stitch. You can see alternating between the simple stitch and the slanted stitch makes kind of a peak that comes together. So we're going to turn our peaks in the other direction so that our rows alternate where the peaks lie. So I will confess, working the slanted stitch into the very first one is a bit of a challenge. So you may want to just go ahead, give that loop a little tug before you even try to insert your hook into it. And then I do find you can lift this loop as high as you want. So if it helps you to lift that loop nice and high before you insert from left to right into that first stitch, go ahead and do it. And then you can just kind of give it a little tug to tighten it back to your regular height before you move on to your next stitch. Because again, all those loops are connected. So then you're going to work Tunisian simple stitch. And then you're just going to keep going in that order. Slanted stitch next. And then simple stitch all the way across your row. I do want to share with you, if you get partway across the row and you're like, oh gosh, what comes next? It's always the opposite of what happened below it. So this stitch you can see is slanted, so I'm working a simple stitch into it. This next one you can see is the right side of that peak, and so it's a simple stitch. So I want to be sure to work a reverse stitch, or a slanted stitch into that. So I'm going to go from left to right on that one. It would be lovely if we could never get interrupted in the middle of a row, right? But sometimes we do, and so it's helpful to know how to see what goes next. The other thing you can see is I can see in the stitches I've worked there that I've created my peak already, and so the right side of the peak is always a simple stitch. So since I've completed that peak, I'm going to go ahead and make my simple stitch for the right side, and then I know that I'm ready for my slanted stitch for the left side of that peak. And then you work all the way across your row, and complete your return pass as usual. And that's how you do a Tunisian waffle stitch. I told you, amazing texture, right? I hope you love and use this stitch. It is always my goal to help you grow confidently in your craft, and I hope that this video has done that. I would love it if you would like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that YouTube will notify you whenever I post a new video or tutorial. Check the links in the description for all of my other Tunisian tutorials. Thank you again for joining me, and happy crafting!